It's been said that every quilt tells a story, and it's so true. But I also believe every quilter has a story to tell. I wanted to hear about the people behind these wonderful quilts and thought you'd enjoy hearing about their lives also. Welcome to A Quilter's Life. Tonya Dunning started her business to get the word out about fidget quilts. Since then, she has expanded her line with other fidget items. She learned how to write quilt patterns and realized she loves editing and writing. So she not only writes her own patterns, but is able to edit patterns for other quilt designers. I want to give a shout out to Daniel Howard for encouraging Tonya to share her story on A Quilter's Life. Tonya, it's so great to have you on A Quilter's Life today.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I am so thankful that you signed up and I didn't have to go chasing you to be on here. So thank you for that. So how did you find out about A Quilter's Life?
I had been listening to podcasts and had kind of gone through most of what I had been listening to. So I just started searching through the libraries and found you and have been listening ever since. I've enjoyed the episodes I've listened to.
Thank you. You mentioned that you know Danielle Howard.
Yes.
How did you meet her?
We were in the Quilter's Candy pattern writing course in 2022, but I did not know her then. After the class was over, another mutual friend started a Facebook group for Christian pattern writers. And it was from that cohort, I guess you call it, that we kind of found each other and we've become friends. So even over the miles.
That's great. It's great to have fellowship, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Well, let's jump back into your background. Where were you born and raised?
I actually was born in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we lived there till the summer between 8th grade and 9th grade. We moved to Raleigh, North Carolina, which was at that time about a 3-hour drive. So I was born in Charlotte, but I feel like I was raised in Raleigh because that's where I learned how to drive. So got my freedom.
I'm curious. We were down in Charlotte for about 10 years. So what part of Charlotte were you familiar with?
We went to Albemarle Road Presbyterian Church. And if I had been there for high school, I would have been at Independence High School. So I'm not real sure. I think it's on the eastern side. I'm not sure. So.
Yeah, I know where that would be. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, we moved right before 9th grade. And I wasn't driving. So, that's very different. And it's very different now.
It sure is. It continues to grow.
Yes, it does.
Share a special childhood memory.
Yeah, this one's been hard. I've been thinking on it. And I keep having, but what about this one? What about this one? It was a good childhood, I guess, because they were mostly happy memories. But the one that really stuck out to me, and I think I know why, is I took dance when I was a kid. Not ballet, but the tap and jazz. And it was a pretty big school that we had. And she would rent out the auditorium in Charlotte for like a whole week. And we would have dress rehearsals. We would have all the performances and all that. But I begged and begged and begged my mom and dad to let us please stay for the awards because we had never stayed. This was my 3rd year dancing. And I was like, I just really wanted to stay just to see, and they let us stay. Well, then it came to a special award, and it was the outstanding 3rd year student for the entire school. And it was me. And I was like, what? And I remember them looking at me, and I'm looking at them going, they knew. I didn't. So, yeah, it was very easy for them to say, yes, we can stay for the awards. So that was a special memory. And I think it showed me, even at that young age, that if you work hard at something, you can achieve good things, great things. So, yeah, I think that was my first big one.
How exciting. Yeah, your parents did have to know.
Yeah, they did.
I'm curious, did they make you beg a little bit more, knowing in the back of their mind that they were going to end up saying yes?
I don't remember. I really don't. I just remember sitting there and them looking at me like, gotcha.
Tonya, did you have employment other than quilting?
Yes, I did. I didn't start working until college or right after high school. My mom and dad were adamant that we focused on our schoolwork and that kind of thing for high school. And I think part of it came, my mom worked like 3 jobs when she was in high school. So she wanted all of us to experience that. So I did the McDonald's thing for a couple of years. And then I was a hostess at a restaurant for 1 week. I did not like that at all. But at the same time, I got an interview with the local fabric shop, which was right down the street from where I ended up living after I got married. It didn't start the love, but it sure fed the love and the stash. So anyway, the fabric shop. And then once my husband, we had been married about 18 months, I guess. And he graduated in December, but we already had a baby and he could not focus on finishing up that senior semester without having to take time to take care of our little ones. So he said, quit your job. We'll take out a loan. And back then the loan, it wasn't even $2,000. It was minuscule compared to today, right? So after that, I stayed home. We decided I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. I did try to go back and finish my degree. It didn't work at that point. So I stayed home, but I did do odd jobs, substitute at the preschool, cleaning, whatever, took in sewing, that kind of thing. 2015, I got a phone call from a friend of mine, and he had a tailor shop here 10 minutes, literally 10 minutes from my house. And he said, I'm in need of some help. Can you come at least see what you think? And I'm like, sure. It was perfect because we homeschooled for most of the time. So I would teach school in the mornings and then go to work in the afternoons. And this is a point when I was back in school. So I was doing my school at night. So I didn't have a life at all. So I didn't do much quilting through then, but I did do a lot of sewing. I learned a lot about at least the tailoring industry and the garment industry. And I realized that's not what I wanted to do. When he decided to retire, he was going to make it possible for me to have the shop. And I said, no, I don't want it. Because at that point, it would have been just me. And I had already done several weeks of just me, and I wasn't doing a good job. I didn't think. So those were my only jobs for real employment.
Well, homeschooling is real employment too.
It is. It just didn't pay a lot of bills.
No.
Because I had a big stash of those books too.
I homeschooled also, and we still have a stash of books up in our attic.
Well, this year we started going through some of the stuff in the basement, and I've already had, I hate to say it, but I've already had 2 big burn days, and it was mostly textbooks, but most of them were out of date, and I can't even sell them for one thing, but nobody wants them. So you couldn't even give them away. We just burned some stuff.
I'm not looking forward to that. You mentioned you had moved to Raleigh, and I'm assuming that you're still in Raleigh.
Actually, no, I'm not. I am in a small town outside of Cincinnati, Ohio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't think too far from you.
I was going to say, did you know I'm in Marietta?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So you're across the state from me.
Yeah.
What brought you from North Carolina up to Ohio?
My husband's job. I didn't do it. After he graduated, he got a job in North Carolina, but it was about an hour north of Raleigh. So he was working there as a designer. They were a manufacturing plant. They had sales and they had the design team. So it was kind of an all in one. He had been there a while, but he got to a point where he had to do something else. And he always calls it, he went to the dark side of sales. So he took the sales position up here in Ohio and we found a house. He has family here. They've become my family. I can't say it's just his family. They become mine. But I think within 6 months, the plant in North Carolina, everyone was told we're shutting down. And we're like, we moved up here. Why? So I don't, but I do know why. He got a job with his number one customer doing pretty much the same thing, but for them. And then we found a church that we really loved and we grew. And that was why. That was the why. I'm not upset. So yeah, that's why we're here.
It's exciting to see how the Lord works in our lives.
Yes. Well, and then just within the last several years, we're no longer at that church. And I feel like maybe he was ready to put us somewhere else. And we are somewhere else serving. And it's a whole different group. But he knew what we needed and he knew what they needed. So, yeah, I'm happy about that.
Yeah. Is there anything else about your family you wanted to share?
Like I said, I was raised in Charlotte. I've got one sister, one brother. They're both younger than I am. So I'm the oldest. And my sister is still close to Raleigh. She's in Cary. And then my brother is out in Washington State. He kind of followed his wife's family out there. So that's where she's from. So we don't get to see each other too much, but they were both in town here a couple of weeks ago for my daughter's senior recital at school. And that was really sweet. But then my family, I have 5 children. There is a 17-year span between 1 and 5. And that was a long time. My oldest has 1 biological daughter, and she's precious. When she's not tired, when she's tired, she gets grumpy. But then they have started fostering kids. They are raising them and they are taking care of them, but they come over here too. And it's hard to not get attached. They tell you don't get attached. And it's, but then sometimes they do go back or things don't work out. Then they have to have a new placement. I tell people, I'm glad we have the system, but I hate the system. That's just my personal opinion. Nobody write me or anything, but I feel for the kids. I do, but they have one little boy that there's a real good chance they might be able to adopt him. And he has been the one of all of them to have really clicked with the family, like instantly. So yeah, it's fun. And it's neat to see how when they move on, we don't always see it, but my son and daughter-in-law do. They have reunions and things at Easter and Christmas and that kind of thing. So it's like, oh yeah, we saw so-and-so the other day and she's doing really good. So they just pick right back up.
That takes a special person to do that job.
Yeah.
With someone with a special heart.
My daughter-in-law's mom, she and I have a lot in common too, but my daughter-in-law, ever since she was young, wanted to save them all. That was what she wanted. And at one point, she even asked her mom, she said, okay, there's a baby girl that's just come up for placement. And her mom looked at her and said, no, don't do it. You're not right now. And that was wise. And then my other 4 children are all single. And they're all still at my house. So, it's some have left and then come back. That's okay. My one daughter is getting ready to graduate next week from NKU. And then my youngest daughter just started. This was her first semester at NKU. So we're happy with that choice for those two.
Nice. I want to ask one question about the fostering. My niece fostered, but for other people to watch the foster kids, they had to go through some training. Did you have to go through training to be able to have them over to your house?
We have to go through training, but we did have a background check. We have to go every 2 years to get re-fingerprinted and the background check again, just to make sure nothing has happened in those 2 years, because a lot can happen in 2 years. So,
well, that's good to hear that the system at least keeps track of that.
Yes, at least their agency does. I am sure it's across the board, but there is training for the foster parents, but I wouldn't say we had any kind of classes or instruction or anything like that. It's just in order to transport, in order to watch them and that kind of thing, we had to do the fingerprint in the background. So,
yeah. Well, if you think of your great-great-grandchildren or your future generations, first, how do you think that they will describe you?
I hope they would describe me as hardworking and loving. I try to be happy. And then just the fact that I do have a Christian heritage.
And if you had the opportunity to speak to them, what would you want to say?
2 things: love the Lord and work hard.
Now, we know you are a quilter because you're on a quilter's life. But are there other hobbies that you've done in the past or that you do now?
Yes. When I was 5 years old, I started embroidery. It was not a picture. It was on burlap that's hanging on my wall. I made it for my grandmother for Christmas that year. And there's some chain stitching this way. There's just some like straight stitches, all different colors, very random. But she loved it so much, she framed it. And on the back, she's written, so I have her handwriting. She's written that I made it, what year. And then, like I said, she had it framed and she hung it every place she lived. Then when she passed, my mom gave it to me. So that's a special thing. But yes, I do cross stitch more than I do embroidery, but I still, on the occasion, will pick up a needlepoint kit instead of a cross stitch kit. Those go so much faster. You only go in one direction. So, but I like the cross stitch. I've gotten into the kits that have the beads in them. So you do the cross stitch, then you do the back stitch, and then you do all the little beads. And I've fallen in love with those. I do not knit. I do not crochet. I have not been able to get my hands to do the way you're supposed to. I can't do it. My daughter does. So I let her do all that. I don't know that I have any other crafty hobbies like that. I would love to start wool felting. I think that's so pretty. I'm in it's called Contemporary Quilts and Fiber Artists. We call ourselves Quaffa. And it's amazing what these women bring and have done. And it's all over the place, dyeing and the needle felting. And there's one lady that does rug hooking. It's amazing. But nothing really has clicked with me besides just quilting and cross stitch. So I guess I'm stuck. I do like to learn new things, though.
Yeah. So, I wouldn't call it stuck, but it's what you have a love for.
Right.
Now, how about other hobbies?
I do like to read, and I've gotten to where it's a wider genre. It's different books than I would typically gravitate toward. And a lot of that has to do with my girls. They'll just pick something out and say, Mom, I think you'd like this. Okay. Some I do, some I don't. Gardening, I take it or leave it. We don't have like a vegetable garden. But, this summer it got so hot and I couldn't go outside. And I'm the same way in winter right now. It's like I can't go outside, but it is what it is. I like to cook, but I don't do a lot of the cooking. My husband has kind of took that over. He lost his job, and while he was home, he just got in the habit of cooking and like, okay. And he even goes grocery shopping. So I guess I shouldn't complain about the cleaning. That's me. It's not a hobby.
It was great during the pandemic where since he's cooking, he just went and I didn't have to go to the store at all.
I know. But now with the girls home, they are all helping learn and they're picking out recipes and starting their own cookbooks. So, the education, yes, home education stops with textbooks, but it never stops.
Right. Tonya, do you think your crafts or hobbies show up in your quilts?
I don't think so. Definitely not the fidget quilts, because those kind of have a formula to them. But no, I've never really done except one quilt. I did do one quilt that had cross stitch in it for my husband's graduation. I did the seal. We were at NC State and did the seal for the school in the middle, and it was 6 strands over. So it turned out being really big. And then I put the fabric around the edges. The store gotten it in so I could get it at a decent price. And then in the corners, I did the white background again and did his name and his degree and the years that he was there. So that's the only one I can think of that has cross stitch in it. And that was back in the late 80s. So that was a long time ago.
It doesn't feel that long ago.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, my brain still thinks, I'm like 20 years younger, but my body goes, no, you're not.
How were you introduced to quilting?
I don't know entirely, except I've always liked the looks of them. Because growing up, my mom, my grandmother, my aunt, they all did the knitting, the crocheting, that kind of thing. So we had Afghans all over, everywhere. And needlepoint, that was the other thing that was really big for them, but they didn't use kits. And then we even have a couple of pieces that have the petty point. So it's a half needlepoint. It's particularly for faces and hands. You get a lot more detail. They almost look painted. That was kind of cool. The church we were in when we got married, a lot of babies were being born. So I decided, hey, why don't I just make baby blankets? And the way we did the showers were always after the babies were born, because nobody back then found out ahead of time what they were having. So in the center block, I would backstitch their full name and their birthday. So I had to wait till the very end. So it was just a simple 5 blocks by 5 blocks. They were 9-inch blocks. So it was about a 45-inch square quilt. And then I tied it at the corners, which wasn't enough, I know. And the fabric in the 80s didn't hold up, I know. But that's okay. I mean, my kids all have theirs. They don't use them anymore, but there were times I had to say, put it in the closet. You're not allowed to use it anymore. So, yeah, that's probably how I got started with quilting. Like I said, with the kids and everything, I couldn't really do anything. And we were involved with church productions and that kind of thing. So I was doing costuming for almost every production. So that was enough sewing. I was done. So, so there's been a lot of things, but no.
Whether it's a quilt that you made or a quilt that you've seen somewhere else, do you have a favorite quilt?
All of them isn't a good answer.
It is.
I do have a couple of favorites. My first one that I wrote in the pattern writing class, that's always going to be special. It was a very simple pattern. It was just the way the fabrics went out. And yeah, it was a very simple pattern, but it's been neat to see other people and how they've made it and that kind of thing. And then my other favorite, I have to say, is it will be coming out in the Shop Hop organization in the spring. So I can't really talk about it and I can't even show you a picture. But I had made one quilt top. This has been designed for almost 2 years. My daughter designed it in EQ8. It sat and sat. I didn't have fabric. And then I went out and I couldn't find fabric. Finally found some and it sat and sat. It was ready to go. I didn't have the time. So this year I said, this is the year going to come out the end of April, period. I just pressed it, taken it around to the long arm to get it quilted. And the light hit it just so. I was like, this would be perfect in the fabric line I just got from Shop Off. And so I just laid it on top of the long arm, went to the computer, mocked it up, sent it in. So that's a special one, just partly because she designed it. That's the main reason. And that is my third one with Shop Off, but it's probably my favorite.
So we have something to look forward to.
Yeah.
It still surprises me all the steps that we do to make our quilts. Do you have a specific step that you really enjoy and look forward to, or do you like each step along the way?
I guess I like each step. The one that I absolutely love is the editing and the writing. When I started the class, I wanted to learn how to write the patterns for the fidget quilts. So that was my focus in the class until we hit editing week. And I was like, this is a thing. I like this. I've graded enough papers. I can do the math. So yeah, that's the part I like the most. And I like to be able to do it for other people and then be able to celebrate them and see how they go. Because sometimes it's hard for me to come up with, well, that's already been done. Those new ideas. It's already been done. I can't do that.
I'm curious, when I buy a pattern, because I do use EQ8 and design a lot of my own stuff, but when I do buy a pattern, what I'm looking for is which way to press the seams.
Oh.
And not all pattern writers include that. And it has surprised me. I'm curious, do you include that?
Sometimes. I had one pattern, it wasn't my pattern, but I made it, and at the very center, because it was like a radius kind of thing, and right in the center, it was like there was a button in it. It wouldn't lay flat, it wouldn't nothing. So I'm like, whatever. So that would have been helpful to have had some pressing ideas. So yeah, but if it's something like that, I definitely anymore, I just press open and kind of hope for the best. With the fidget quilts, that's something else that's different with them. I use a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and I do press those open just because it keeps it flatter.
Yeah, that would make a difference, making the seam wider. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Tell me about your worst quilting experience.
We all have those, don't we? And it's more than one. I was doing a t-shirt quilt for a friend. Everything was loaded. I checked the tension. I checked everything. And I did the first little bit, checked it again on the underneath side. I was like, oh, it's not too bad. No, it was bad. And the further I went, and I went all the way down, the tension got worse. So yeah, don't do that. So I pulled it off. And because it was so bad, all I had to do was pull that bobbin thread. It just came. But the thing with that was it left holes in the t-shirts. You could see them, and it was just a meander. In a way, that was good because it wasn't a pantograph, but I was like, how do I get these holes out? I can't follow my lines, you know? So I stuck just the top in the dryer on low or no heat, put a couple of damp towels, like hand towels in it, and it really kind of relaxed those holes. If it happens to you, there's your workaround.
Oh, I bet your heart sunk.
It did.
There's all sorts of things we could do with our time, and you have chosen to quilt. Why do you think you continue to quilt rather than follow something else?
I think I want to make a difference, whether it's somebody who can use what I've created or to help somebody with their pattern or to just be an encouragement to somebody.
And then who do you make your quilts for?
Like a full-size quilt for family, friends who are like family. The fidget quilts and the fidgety things I make in case I encounter somebody who could use them, or I do local craft fairs. And last year it was just to get the word out. So yeah, there was a man last year. It's one of the bigger shows here in the area, and he did not buy a fidget quilt while he was at the show, but he ordered one about a week later. He's like, got this email, and he said, can you please send it to this address instead of this address? Because he had put his address as the mailing address, which was just north of here. And it ended up going out west somewhere. And he came by again this time, and I wasn't there. I had taken a break or something. And he told my husband, he said, well, first of all, my mom is still alive. And second of all, his dad pulls out that fidget quilt for her every single day. And I was like, okay, my job's done. Those kind of stories are kind of what keep me going. And because it's something that I created and that they're still loving on, that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
You know, you just don't know who you're going to touch in any one situation, day, whatever.
Mm-hmm. What's your favorite tool?
You're going to laugh. A razor blade. I started using them in the tailor shop. It's a quick way to get the seams ripped out, especially like for quilting. Our stitches are a lot closer together than with garment sewing, but still to sit there with a volume of clothes with the seam ripper, I learned really fast how to use that. I still put holes in things. Yes, I do. But I know how to fix them. I even did the match of the month or match of the weekend or something between Jack and Ray and put it on Instagram. And for me, it went viral. It had like 300 views or something. I don't know. But for me, that was really good. But they're both good. One's for one thing, one's for something else. And I don't know that anybody has followed that, but I still use my razor blades. But then a really close second is, I know we do have a lot of tools and programs and all the things, but pencil and paper, whether it's paper or cardboard or cardstock or whatever, sometimes you just have to go back to the basics. Yeah, it's a little slower, but you can still use it when the power goes out.
Yeah, we do get hooked on our electronics, don't we?
Yes, we do.
What are you working on right now?
I do have one t-shirt quilt that I need to get finished the end of this week. And then I've got a couple of Christmas gifts that I'm kind of working on. So one of them is a new to me technique. I just can't work on it too much. This November was really busy with lots. I had 3 shows and the recital and all the things. So I just took a break from it. But yeah, I am not trying to get the whole thing done. I just want to get the top done. And then we'll go from there. Yeah, and I like to learn different techniques, but those are the things I'm working on right now.
Share a quilting tip.
Well, this could go back to the worst moment in quilting. Just be careful with your rotary blades. Make sure your insurance is all paid up.
Oh, no.
I was working on Project Linus quilt, and I just took right off the corner of my finger, and I knew there was no questioning whether we were going or not. I just had to find a ride because I couldn't drive. So my next door neighbor took me to the ER, and I'm very thankful that my nurse was an Army medic. He had just come back from Desert Storm, I guess. One of them. I don't know. Anyway, he was deployed and he came back, was working at the hospital. So he packed it in and okay. So yeah, just be careful and change your blades often because a sharper one does not hurt and do as much damage as a dull one. Just like a knife.
Wow.
I still can't feel it. So,
wow.
Yeah, that was years ago.
Some people say, I haven't done that yet, and I don't like that yet. I don't want to do it at all.
Right. No, you don't. That finger has been through a lot anyway. It had gotten closed in a door, not slammed, just closed. And then I did have an embroidery machine at one point, and the needle went right down through it, all the way through. And I was stuck in the machine. Yeah. And nobody was home, and I didn't have a cell phone. I was like, you just have to turn the wheel. I'm like, I know, but I don't want to. I did, and I put it away for the day.
Wow.
I won't forget that either. I am a klutz.
Well, describe how you went from having quilting as your hobby and it became a business for you.
Like I said, I had been doing sewing for people kind of all through the years. And then when I was at the tailor shop, I was learning a lot of that. Then when he retired, I needed something to do. And we had been through a lot of things with my mom and learning about the fidget quilts. So I was like, you know what? I think I could do this. I now have the time to run a business. At first I thought, oh, let's just do the Etsy thing. It was just mug rugs and some throws and that kind of thing. And really had no idea what I was doing, honestly. Then I found the fidget quilts came back into play and found the pattern writing course. That's Elizabeth Chappell's, by the way. I learned a lot through that. And at the same time, I was creating a website. So it was like I was back in college, which was fine, but it was a lot of work. So that's it was more of a what can I do at home? I still had one who was still in high school at the time. So not that I really had a whole lot to do for her, but I still had to be home for her. So yeah, I'm into my 4th year. So that was November 1st, 2021 is when I opened. So that's kind of how it happened.
So tell us the name of your business and how did you come up with it?
The name of the business is Memory Barn Studio. So the fall, right before we opened, my daughter was working about 40 minutes away and she still didn't have her license. She was still working on her temps and that kind of thing. She had been away at school and that kind of thing, so you can't really practice. So when I would go to pick her up, especially after closing, I would get there right about closing time, but I always took my notebook and I would write down just all these ideas. And one of them I found and I absolutely loved it. I came home and Googled it, make sure nobody else had it. Well, that was a fabric company that has that name. So I said, yeah, no, we can't use that. So my husband had built a storage barn during COVID, and I wanted it to reflect the memory part of the business. And, I work in a studio, so it just kind of came together like that. So, yeah, but a lot of brainstorming.
So is your studio in the barn?
Oh, no, it's above the garage.
Okay.
So we have a 3-car garage. It's big enough for a 10-foot frame. and everything else is around the perimeter. And I can't move. Like I said earlier, my computer's in a spot where it glitches a lot, but I can't move it at all. So I just know to take the laptop somewhere else.
So you took Elizabeth's pattern writing course. How exciting was it when you sold your first pattern to someone you didn't know?
It was pretty exciting, but it was also, here's another tip. Don't do too much around the launch. Just don't. I had been the chair for our summer quilt show, which had just finished like maybe the week before the release. So that was enough. But then I had an event on July 4th, and I said, I'm going to release on July 4th. Well, that's a holiday. Don't do that either. I didn't have my website set up right. So it was like, I just can't. And then I had company coming in like the next day to stay, like a long, long weekend. So don't do that. And I don't do that anymore. But yeah, when I saw that first person that I didn't know, it was exciting, But even now it's because that was a traditional pattern. That was the one from the course. But I just had one a week ago that it was somebody bought a fidget quilt pattern. That makes me more excited. And I had a girl, she gave me a really bad review because she bought two of them. And one of them was for the yo-yo garden, but it's where you take yo-yos, and that's what makes your flowers or caterpillars or whatever. And she didn't realize that she needed the yo-yo maker. And even though I had it right on the thing, so I spent one whole afternoon on email with her, and I said, you know what, start with this one, because I guess that's the only one she had bought. And I sent her the patchwork one, which is the most simple. And then I even sent her something else too, just to try to make it. And then she changed her review. And I was like, okay, customer service does work. So anyway.
And what is the background on why did you start making fidget quilts?
I don't know when it was, but in about 2015, 2016, my mom was diagnosed with dementia. And I'd heard the word, but I never really knew what it was. I knew Alzheimer's, but I didn't know dementia. And there are some differences. I couldn't tell you what they are, but they're very closely related. When that happened, she was still in Raleigh, and I was up here. And how can I help her 500 miles away? Well, 2018 began a very, very difficult year for us. But one thing I was able to do was I was able to make her a couple of fidget quilts and take it down. My mother-in-law passed away in the summer of 2018. And by Thanksgiving, we were all together to clean out that house. So I took them with us for that. At that point, we already knew Mom was going into an assisted living facility the 1st of January. She didn't realize it, but we knew. And it was time. So when we came back for that, got her settled in the assisted living, it didn't take long for the staff to realize she needs to be in the memory care unit. So one day while she was in an exercise class, the handyman and I, we took 3 trips and we moved her from the top floor to the bottom floor. And it was good. They became like family to us. So that was the beginning of 2019. So I was able to travel. And then 2020, and it all shut down. And I couldn't do anything. We did a lot of FaceTime. We did a lot of multiple devices through the window. It was weird how some of it happened. But I said, you know what? I can make some fidget quilts for the residents down there. And so I did. And during that time, one of our neighbors, it was right at Halloween, and one of the neighbors put out on Facebook, if you can come by, my mom wants to see everybody in their costumes. She had dementia. And I think they knew that was her last one. And she just wanted to see the kids. So I got a fidget quilt pulled together and I took it up with us, and she loved it. She did. She put it on her lap and she just kept going with it. And yeah, that was rewarding. And then to see my mom open the box that I shipped, that was really cool. And then she passed away in February of 2021. And so I continue to make them in her memory, but for other people who could benefit from them too. So that's the background.
Tonya, is there anything else about your business you wanted to share?
I do the fidget quilts. I do a few other fidget items, but I also do the t-shirt quilts, the writing, the editing, that kind of thing. All of fidget quilts that I make have a tab so that you can roll them up for storage or transporting or whatever. But it's good to have a red. Red is the first color we get and the last color we lose. So if you have some red on there, as your color sight is diminishing, you still have that pop of red. Everything else kind of goes black and gray. I had a question on, well, if it's a quilt, how do you quilt it? When do you quilt it? Well, it depends. I actually quilt them when I'm putting the things on. But then the yo-yo one, with the yo-yo flowers, I stitched them by hand, but then I put them down with like the blanket stitch. But down in the grass, that's all just free motion quilted. So you get that texture as well. So you're looking at the three senses: sight, touch, and hearing. I started doing the small ones for kids. They're great for autistic kids. They're great just for kids. They're great for me. There's a medium size. So yeah, those are the fidget quilts. Another one that I'm doing is their marble mazes. It's just a good, quiet fidget.
I have never seen one of those. That is really cool. So the marble is between two pieces of material, and you've sewn a maze on there for the marble to go through.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep. So my husband, being the engineer, he designed the medium size and the large size have an actual maze. So it goes all the way around. I've written the pattern for the marble mazes. It includes the mazes for the bigger sizes. And then I was like, well, we can't leave the babies out. So I made some of the crinkle. So that's my fidget line.
I saw on your website that you were in the New England Hop Shop, but you live in Ohio. How were you in the New England one?
Yeah, Danielle actually is the one who got me kind of directed toward the shop hop group. And that was the first call, I guess, that I was able to be a part of. At that point, it really hadn't grown to where it has grown. And that was just a year ago. It has grown to the point you can't hardly get in anymore, which is good. That means there's a lot of good designers out there. But I just submitted a design and they liked it. I actually submitted two. And Colleen, who was kind of coordinating the designers and stuff, she actually called me and said, can we do this one, the pillows, instead of the throw? And I'm like, I don't care. So we did the pillows and it actually made it into the magazine. That was amazing to see my work, my name in a book. And then I actually have two more coming out next year. So we'll see.
So did you have anything in the Ohio Hop Shop?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No.
I had to ask because I was going to go look and...
Okay. No. The Ohio one, the call comes out, I think, like October. And I didn't get started till December. So I didn't have that. But yeah, it's crazy. And I looked at the fabrics this year and sometimes I come up with something and sometimes it's like, no, not this time.
It must have been so exciting, though, to see your name and your project in the magazine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where can we find Memory Barn Studio?
I'm everywhere with Memory Barn Studio, Instagram, Facebook, website. There's a contact page on the website, and that's the best way to get up with me. I get it pretty quick.
Great. And those links will be listed on your episode page on aquilterslife.com.
All right.
Tonya, it was so great to hear your story. Thank you for sharing with me.
Thank you for having me, and it was a pleasure.
Oh, it was wonderful. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You can find more stories on aquilterslife.com or subscribe on your favorite podcast player so each episode will be downloaded automatically. Also, I want to hear about you and your wonderful quilts. Please contact me, Paula Chamberlain, through the website to set up an interview. And as always, thanks for listening.